Good day, everybody. Why do you own what you own? And how do good things come to you? And do you own things because you purchased them and you have a certificate? Or is there more to ownership and what comes to you than the world understands? Could it be that there are laws and principles that govern what you have that run far deeper than the surface and the world acknowledges? So today I want to explore with you a very powerful universal dynamic called the right of consciousness. And the right of consciousness says that what comes to you is a match to who you are and your intentions and your vision and your attitude and your willingness. And everything that comes to you, you deserve scientifically by the right of your consciousness. It's a very dynamic spiritual law. There was a famous musician named Fritz Kreisler. He was a violinist who was popular back in the 1920s. And Kreisler came to New York and he was in a little music shop on 48th Street. And he found a Stradivarius, a magnificent violin, among the best. And he said to the shopkeeper, "I must have this violin. What is the cost?" And of course, the Stradivarius was astronomical. And Kreisler said, "Look, I don't have that kind of money, but I will put it together. I had no people, and I will put some loans together, and I will get this. Will you hold this for me until I get the loan?" And the shopkeeper said, "Well, I'd like to, but it's if anybody else purchase it, they purchase it first. Whoever pays the price gets it." Kreisler said, okay. So Kreisler went and he took him a couple of days and he had sponsors and people who loved him and believed him. And he got the money, the asking price for the violin. And he went back to the shop and the shopkeeper said, "I'm so sorry. A man came in here the other day and he was a famous collector, a wealthy collector. And he purchased it. So I sold it to him." Of course, Kreisler was crestfallen. And he said, "Would you please give me that man's name and address? I would like to see if he'll sell it to me." And the shopkeeper did. And Kreisler went to the man, he explained that he wanted to buy it, and he had the asking price. And the collector said, "Well, I'm sorry, but I purchased this for a reason, and I have a really good collection. This will be like the flagship of my collection now, so sorry, it's not for sale." Kreisler said, "Okay, I understand." As I was leaving the apartment, he had his hand on the doorknob. And he turned and he said, "Before I leave, would you mind if I just played that instrument for the moment? I'd like to feel it." The man said, "Sure." So Kreisler took the violin and he played a piece that was just heartrending, and he made it sing. It was as if he was making love to the violin. There was such a simpatico relationship between him and the instrument that it came to life. And it was such a touching piece that the owner came to tears. And Kreisler handed the instrument back to him and he headed for the door. And the man said, "Wait." He said, "I could never make that violin sing like you did. You brought such beauty to the world in the few minutes you played that piece." He said, "If I owned it, it would just sit on my wall on the shelf, and I would brag to people when they came to my apartment." He said, "You deserve this because the world deserves to hear the music you will create with this instrument." And he sold the piece to the musician. You see, Fritz Kreisler owned that instrument by the right of his consciousness. He was the match to the instrument far more than that collector. He deserved it because his vision for how he's going to use it was noble. And he had the talent and the passion, and many thousands of people would benefit from his music through that instrument. He owned that instrument by the right of his consciousness. It belonged to him. It was his by energetic match, more than the dollars he paid for it. So everything that comes to us because it's equal to us, and everything that doesn't come to us does not come because it is not equal to us. You're living in the bubble of attraction of your mind and heart and intentions and willingness and purpose and vision. That's why you get things, and that's why you own things. You understand we're talking about real ownership, not worldly ownership, but soul ownership by right of consciousness. Many years ago, I heard about a conference that was happening in New York City. It was a one-day lecture series, and they had some stellar teachers. I thought, well, I'd like to go to this. But I kept putting it off. I didn't get a ticket. And I thought, do I want to pay the price? And is it expensive? And no, can I go? Do I have the time? No. So I didn't sign up for it. And I had a friend I was going to go with, and she said, well, if you want to go, I'll go with you. If not, that's fine too. Well, the night before the conference, I just got this rush of energy that I wanted to attend. I thought, I'm not going to miss this. It's a good conference. So I called up my friend, I think it was 11:30 at night, and I said, do you want to go? She said, fine. So I drove to her house the next morning. I was late, and there was traffic, and no. And we got to the conference after it started, and they just had a few tickets left. And we found ourselves like way up into the third balcony at this lecture hall at NYU in Manhattan. And we were like just down from the very top of heaven there. And I sat down next to this man, a very cute little guy, bald-headed guy with little wire glasses. And I looked down, he needed like spy glasses to see the speakers. So I complained. I said, well, they put us up here. We're way out there in the stratosphere. And he looked at me and he said, well, we only get what we get by right of our consciousness. And it stunned me. I think he was like an angel that God sent to teach me a very powerful metaphysical lesson. And what he was saying was that, if I had been so excited about the conference when I heard about it that I just signed up and paid for my ticket on that day, I would have gotten a front row seat perhaps. But I definitely would have been down closer to the stage. But because I was unsure, and because I wondered if I could afford it, and because I delayed to the very, very, very last minute, so I got the ticket, I got the seat way up in heaven. It was a perfect match. I was not a victim of any circumstances. That seat was a match to my consciousness. I went on to enjoy the conference anyway. It was a great day. I could hear and see the people. It was just fine. But that little man taught me a lesson of a lifetime. That it's no accident the seat you're sitting in. For better or for worse. Now this plays out, the right of consciousness plays out in our relationships, all of our relationships. And I coached a woman once who said, I really want to find my soulmate, but I just haven't been able to. I'm getting older and I'm worried, and why can't I attract a man? So I said, well, tell me about your relationships. She said, men are such jerks. She said, I go with all these guys, and there's something wrong with all of them. She said, one guy was too hairy, and all guys wanted sex, and one guy made me pay for myself. She had this long litany of what's wrong with guys. And I said, can you see that your energy to push a man away is far stronger than your energy to attract a man? I said, you're going like this, I want a man, but you're going like this is what's wrong with men. So I said, you're not going to attract a man until your intention to be with a man is stronger than your intention to be away from a man. It's a very simple dynamic. There's no right or wrong about it. It's just a scientific principle that's playing itself out in your consciousness. So I began to work with her. Okay, well, why do you want to be with a man? What's good about men? And of all the men you've dated, what do you like about them? And you've had a relationship that sort of worked, and what sort of worked about it? And we kind of, what I was attempting to do is to tilt the balance from resistance to allowance and willingness. And we eventually did, and over time, I coached her over time. She met a guy eventually because she shifted her consciousness, and when she shifted her consciousness, the right of consciousness, the law of attraction in one form, took over. So you can't blame the world for withholding anything from you, because there's something in you that is withholding it from yourself. Well, you're not wrong. It's just science playing itself out. And so the world has its ways of justifying what you own. So you get a marriage certificate. It says you're married. It's a piece of paper. But I think you know where I'm headed with this. That just because you have a piece of paper that says you're married does not mean you're married. You're married only when you're married by heart. The heart connection is what makes the real marriage. It's the spiritual marriage, the mystical marriage. And you know as well as I do, perhaps you're one of them, there are many people who've been married on paper, but there was no soul connection. There was no heart connection. You're sleeping in the same bed, but you're feeling terribly lonely. And there's a paper in your drawer or on the wall that says you're married, and you look at that and go, what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. Because you're married by right of consciousness. Or you're not married by right of consciousness. And there are other people who never get a marriage certificate. But they live together and they love each other and they support each other. Perhaps they have a family. And they're married because they love each other and they want to be together and they choose to be together. You know, staying together because you have a certificate is, you know, it's like you create a hell because you don't belong together. Now, you can't, not to say you can't fix the marriage. I mean, all relationships are potentially improvable, but they're improvable because of the right of your consciousness, not because you have a paper. And conversely, there are people who have a divorce decree, but they're still in a relationship. The relationship goes on for years, for better or for worse. Some people get divorced and they're fighting for years. They're still in a relationship. They're in a fighting relationship. And that paper says you're divorced, but they're not divorced in consciousness because they have Velcro hooks that are hooking them together. And so it's what's happening in your mind, not what's happening on the paper. And there's other people who are divorced on paper, but they still love each other. And they still support each other. Perhaps they still have a loving connection, and they've moved out, and their children go back and forth, but they're kind to each other, and they care about each other, and they want each other's well-being. And so they're divorced legally, but spiritually there's kind of a marriage of mutual kindness. The relationship goes on because they choose to be connected to each other in consciousness. You understand? It's they're in a relationship by right of attitude and intention. So you see, there's a level at which you believe the world, at which the world says things happen, and there's another level. And we'll make one more point. That what you own by right of consciousness must come to you. It must come to you without anxious manipulation. If you get into, I have to force this and talk this person to this, and you're not working from depth, you're working from the shallow level. And this goes for houses and cars and possessions and jobs. So Dee and I were once looking for a house, and we found one we really liked. We said to the realtor, okay, we'd like to put an offer in. The realtor said, well, I'm sorry, it went into escrow with somebody else. Somebody else has a deal on it. And we were disappointed. But we said, okay, well, let's just flow with this. And if the house is ours, it'll come to us. If not, this or better. I like that phrase, this or, if you want something or try to buy something, have a relationship, doesn't work, you say this or better. That's how you end your prayers. You don't try to demand a particular thing, but you say, I want the rightest thing to come to me by virtue of my intention, and then it comes. And if it's not right, it doesn't come. You don't want it anyway. If that guy turned his back on you, or he doesn't call you back, or he doesn't, you don't want him. He doesn't belong to you. Because people belong, not that you own each other, but people belong to each other because they match. If they don't match, don't try to force it. You cannot force a match of any kind. That's the ego's way. The Spirit's way says what comes to me naturally and easily and joyfully and organically. So Dee and I just kind of let this go, and we figure, well, let's see what happens. And a week later, the realtor calls us and says, oh, that deal fell out of escrow and the house is on the market again. And we made an offer. And it was accepted. And we moved into the house. We love that house. And then, we the people that didn't get it, for some reason, it was not a match to them. I don't know this story. They ended up with a house that was a match to them. See, everything is working perfectly. You understand? There's no slippage in the system. It's called divine order, which means that all the cogs and wheels of the universe are interfacing and turning just like clockwork by divine principles, not by human principles. Divine law is what governs all our interactions and all results. So we can relax around this. We say, okay, I claim divine order. You didn't get that job, I claim divine order. And then you get the job you deserve. I didn't get that partner, I claim divine order. Then you get the partner you deserve. You see, so can we just say, okay, God's in charge? Someone once gave me a t-shirt and there was a picture of it was like a cartoon of like a director's chair on the moon, and you could see the Earth in the distance, and there was like a megaphone, so it was like a director's chair, and it said, relax, God is in charge. So, can we relax? Can we let God be in charge of instead of ego? And you could also say, relax, divine order is in charge. Relax. The law of attraction is in charge. Relax. The right of consciousness is in charge. So let's close with an affirmation. You can say this if you like. Everything good comes to me because I love it and I deserve it. Let me repeat that. Everything good, everything I own by right of consciousness, everything good comes to me because I love it and I deserve it. So today I affirm with you that you're on your right path, that all the right people are showing up in your life, all the right things are showing up in your life, that the universe is masterfully and magnificently orchestrated to match you with everything that is good for you, that is healing and loving and perfect and uplifting for you. And we can all relax because God is indeed in charge. Have a perfect day.